I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to fall for the worst betrayal of all, but here I am trying to make sense of what my wife did to me. We'd been married just over a year. I thought we had a good thing going, simple, honest, quiet. She was the type to keep her cards close, quiet about her past, but I never questioned her much. I was comfortable, happy even, until I was. It started a few weeks ago when I found her phone. I wasn't snooping, honestly. It just slipped from her purse onto the floor while she was in the kitchen. That's when I saw it. A message from some guy named Ryan, my best man from the wedding, asking to meet up. Nothing suspicious at first, just a casual "let's hang out soon." But something about the way she responded, the timing, the little smiley she sent back. It made my stomach churn. And then I saw the photos on her phone. A hotel selfie, her face lit up with a smile I didn't recognize. My heart started pounding. I stood there frozen, staring. I felt the sweat trickle down my back as I realized she'd been sneaking around with Ryan for weeks, and I'd missed all the signs. The late nights, the secretive texting, every little thing I chalked up to her being busy, tired, stressed. Turns out she'd been lying to my face, hiding this whole other life, and I had no idea. I confronted her that night. My voice probably came out rougher than I intended, but I could hardly control it. "Who the hell is Ryan? What's going on?" She froze. Her face went pale and her eyes flicked away for a split second. "It's nothing, just some friend." "Don't lie to me," I snapped. "I found your messages. You've been planning something with him. Don't tell me it's just friends." I held up her phone, trembling with rage. "You've been lying this whole time. How long has this been going on?" She looked like she wanted to run, but I blocked her path. "You need to tell me the truth, now. Did you cheat on me with Ryan?" Her shoulders sagged and she finally looked me in the eye, tears pooling. "It's not what you think. It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen." That's when I saw the evidence, the real kicker. A receipt for a hotel stay tucked into the back of her purse. Not just any hotel, one she'd booked for her and Ryan right after our wedding. I'd never seen that receipt before. It was fresh, dated just days after our honeymoon started. That's when my world crumbled. I couldn't breathe. My stomach dropped like I'd been punched in the gut. Every part of me felt numb, but my mind was racing. How long had this been going on? Was I blind? Was I stupid? I looked at her, trying to find a shred of remorse, but all I could see was her trembling face, her tears, and the cold reality that everything I believed in was a lie. I told her to leave, to get out of my sight. I needed space to think, to breathe, to process what I'd just uncovered. As she gathered her things and left, I stared at the hotel receipt again. That's when I realized I was going to make her regret this. Not just by leaving her, but by making her face the consequences of her lies. I spent the next few days plotting. I wasn't going to confront her again without a plan. I knew I had to hit her where it hurt, her reputation, her lies, her secrets. I started by digging into Ryan. I found out where he worked, what he drove, what he liked. I wanted to be sure I had the upper hand when I finally handed her back her betrayal. Every time I saw her face, I felt the same dull rage. The way she smiled at me like she was innocent stung worse than any slap. I kept seeing Ryan's smug grin, imagining him knowing all along. Was he always aware she was a liar, or was I just blind to the warning signs? Honestly, I didn't care anymore. What mattered was revenge, and I was going to get it. I'd been betrayed, humiliated, and left with a sinking feeling that I had been nothing more than a fool. But this was war now. She thought she'd get away with it, but I was about to remind her she wasn't the only one with secrets. And when I was done, she would regret ever crossing me. I looked at her empty house, then at my phone, and started making calls. The game was on. I wasn't just going to let her walk away, not this time. The plan started to take shape in my head as I sat there, the room silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and my racing thoughts. I'd never been the vengeful type, but this betrayal had changed something in me. I couldn't just walk away, not after discovering she'd been sneaking around with Ryan, my best man, the guy I trusted the most. That was an insult I wasn't going to forgive. First, I needed proof. Not just the hotel receipt, but more. I knew she'd delete messages, hide calls, and try to cover her tracks. That's when I remembered her phone was always with her, always unlocked when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I waited until she was out grocery shopping, then I slipped into the bedroom, grabbed her phone, and started digging. The first thing I found was a string of texts between her and Ryan, all coded but clear enough to understand plans, secret meetups, a lot of can't wait to see you, and tonight's the night. I felt my jaw tighten. She'd been planning this. During our supposedly happy days, maybe even on our honeymoon. That's when I saw the last few messages, urgent, late at night with a picture attached. I hesitated, then unlocked her phone to see what it was. It was a photo of her lying on a hotel bed, half-dressed, smirking at the camera. No doubt taken just after they'd finished their affair. That image burned itself into my mind like hot iron. I stared at it, feeling my throat tighten. My fists clenched so tightly I thought my nails would cut into my palms. Here she was, lying to my face, betraying everything I thought we had. I kept searching, pulling up call logs from the past month. Nothing suspicious, yet. But then I saw the last call made to Ryan on the night of our wedding day. It was a missed call. I couldn't help but wonder if more calls had been made, if their lies had been buried under the veneer of our wedding celebration. I was seething. But I needed more evidence, something I could use to make her realize how badly she'd screwed up. I started recording her calls, just in case she tried to deny everything later. Plus, I was gathering every piece of physical proof, hotel receipts, screenshots, even her deleted messages from the cloud. When she finally arrived back home, I was sitting on the couch, calm but cold inside. She looked at me like I was about to blow, her face pale, eyes shifting nervously. I didn't say a word. Instead, I handed her the phone and the hotel receipt. Her eyes widened as she saw the evidence laid out before her. "Explain this," I said, voice ice cold. "Tell me what the hell I'm supposed to believe when I see this." She stammered, trying to come up with some excuse, but I cut her off. "Don't bother, I've seen enough. You've been lying to my face, sneaking around with Ryan. How long has this been going on? Did you think I wouldn't find out?" She looked like she wanted to cry, but I was past caring about her tears. She could cry all she wanted. I was already planning what came next. I knew I had to do something drastic, something she wouldn't be able to spin her way out of. I told her I was done, that she needed to pack her things and leave. She didn't protest much, just a whisper of "I'm sorry," which I didn't want to hear. I knew her kind, sorry only when caught, sorry only for herself. As she left, I sat there, the evidence laid out on the table. My mind was racing with possibilities. I wasn't just going to confront her and let her walk away. No, I wanted her to pay. I wanted her to know that her lies had consequences. I'd been naive, yes, but not stupid. That night I started working on my plan. I decided I wasn't going to confront Ryan directly, at least not yet. Instead, I was going to make her feel the sting of her betrayal in a way she'd never forget. I knew his workplace, his routines, his weaknesses. Something about that just clicked, the idea that I could expose him too and make her realize she'd played with fire. I slept little that night, and when morning came, I was already making calls. I needed to find out everything I could about Ryan, where he worked, what he liked, who his friends were. I wasn't planning to ruin him yet, just to make him understand I was watching. I could feel the heat rising in my chest every time I thought about her, about the lies, about the way she'd looked at me like she was innocent. That's when I realized. She'd always known she was lying, and she'd taken a gamble that I wouldn't find out. But I had, and I wasn't finished yet. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about making her realize that her betrayal wasn't going to go unpunished. That's when I started to see the outline of my plan more clearly, an elaborate game of exposing her secrets, of making her face the consequences she tried so hard to avoid. She thought she could cheat, lie, and walk away. Well, I was going to make sure she paid for every damn second of it. By the time I had all the pieces in place, I felt the tense weight of anticipation settle deep into my bones. I'd spent days gathering intel, calling friends of Ryan, digging into his social media, even tracking down his workplace. Anything to make sure I knew exactly how to set the trap. I wasn't just planning to confront her again. I was planning to turn her world upside down. I knew her habits too well by now. She always left her phone on the charger in the living room when she showered, thinking I wouldn't dare touch it. That's where I started. I quietly copied her messages, her recent photos, everything I could find. I wanted her to feel her lies crumble piece by piece. One evening she was out for a walk, probably trying to forget what she'd done. I sat on the couch, fingers trembling slightly, flipping through her phone's contents. I found more than she expected, more messages, some deleted but recoverable, telling Ryan about her doubts, her fears, her guilt. She'd been trying to convince herself she was just having a fling, but her words betrayed her. Then I stumbled on something unexpected, an email draft half-written, addressed to Ryan. It was a farewell letter of sorts where she was saying she was done. She'd leave everything behind, start fresh. That was when I saw how far she'd gone, how far she'd been willing to go to escape her lies. I stared at the screen, feeling a strange mixture of anger and curiosity. Was she planning to leave me? Or was this just another way to hide her trail? Either way, it was clear she wasn't planning to come clean anytime soon. The next day, I decided it was time for action. I couldn't just sit back and wait for her to slip up. I had to make her see I was onto her, that I knew everything. I arranged to meet Ryan under the guise of an innocent chat, but I had a different agenda. I wanted him to understand I wasn't playing around anymore. I called him, leaving a vague message that I needed to talk. When he finally responded, I set the meeting at a quiet coffee shop. As he sat across from me, I could see the smugness in his eyes, like he thought he outsmarted everyone. "Ryan," I started, voice even but cold, "we need to have a little talk." I paused for effect, leaning in just enough to make him uncomfortable. "I know about the affair. I know about the hotel, the messages, everything. And I want to know, did you ever think about what this would do to me?" He blinked, surprised at first, then smirked. "Look, man, I didn't force her. She's a grown woman, she made her choice. Did she? Or did you manipulate her into thinking this was okay?" I shot back. "Because I plan to let everyone know exactly what kind of guy you really are. Don't think I'm bluffing." His face darkened, but he didn't deny the truth. I knew I had him right where I wanted. When I left, I felt the heat of my anger simmering just below the surface. I had to get more evidence, more leverage. I wanted her to see I was serious, that I wouldn't let her walk away without paying. That night I called her. When she answered, I kept my voice steady. "We need to talk face to face. It's about everything you've been hiding." Her voice cracked, but she agreed to meet me the next day. When she showed up, I was ready. I handed her the phone with all the messages, the hotel receipts, the emails. I kept my gaze steady, watching her carefully. Her face went pale and she tried to deny everything, but I was already prepared. "You see this?" I said softly but firmly. "This is what you've been hiding from me. Your lies, your betrayal, and I'm not going to let you get away with it." Her eyes welled with tears as she opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. "No more excuses, I've had enough." I paused, then added, "You're leaving today. Pack your things and get out. I don't want to see you again." She looked at me, defeated but still desperate. "Please." "No," I said sharply. "You made your choices. Now it's my turn." I handed her the key to her car and watched as she took her stuff and left, all while feeling that strange, cold sense of satisfaction creeping in. That night, I sat alone with her things gone and the house echoing emptier than ever. I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I'd finally done what I had to, but it left a bitter taste in my mouth. The next step was clear. I was going to make her regret what she did by exposing her lies to everyone. But first, I had to figure out exactly how to do it. The pieces were in place. Now I just needed to set the trap. I looked at her empty house one last time. I was finally free, though I wondered if I'd ever truly heal from the sting of betrayal. Still, it was better than feeling blind and stupid for trusting someone who'd been lying to me the whole time. The moment she walked out that door, I felt a strange mix of relief and something darker, a damned satisfaction that maybe, just maybe, I was finally taking control of this nightmare. But I knew better than to think this was over. If anything, it was just beginning. I had to finish what I started. I had to ensure she paid for every lie, every secret she kept from me. I spent the next couple of days setting up the final pieces. I knew she'd try to fight back, deny everything, maybe even come back with tears and apologies. That's why I wanted everything documented, everything undeniable. I kept a close eye on her social media, her phone, even her email. I didn't trust her to just disappear quietly. While she was out trying to piece her life back together, I was busy. I contacted a private investigator I knew, paid him to dig into her recent activities. I wanted to know if she'd been in contact with Ryan, if she'd told anyone else about her affair, or if she'd been planning her escape. I had a feeling she'd still try to run, but I was ready for that. Meanwhile, I made a few calls of my own, to some friends I'd trusted, asking if they'd seen or heard anything about her or Ryan. I wanted to create a detailed timeline with all the pieces falling into place. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deeply she'd hidden her lies. It was almost impressive if it wasn't so damn infuriating. One thing I did confirm: she'd booked a one-way ticket to an unknown city for the following week. I knew she was planning to vanish again, probably to start fresh somewhere else. That's when I knew I had to act quickly. I couldn't let her slip away for good, not without making her see that I wasn't some fool who got played. I decided I wasn't just going to confront her again. I was going to confront everyone who might have helped her hide. I drafted messages and carefully planned my steps. I wanted her to realize that her lies had consequences, and I was ready to drag her into the light. Late at night, I sent a series of anonymous tips to her workplace, her friends, even her parents. I told them about the hotel receipts, the emails, the affair. I made sure to keep my voice cold, calculated. If she thought she could hide, I'd make sure she regretted that every second. I wanted to see her face when her world started crumbling. The following morning, I saw her panic. She called me frantic, begging me to stop. I didn't pick up. That was the moment I knew I'd succeeded in my plan. I wanted her to feel helpless, cornered, like she had nowhere to run. No more lies, no more hiding. I also bought a burner phone, started to make my own moves. I contacted Ryan directly, under the guise of being an old friend with some questions. I wanted to see how he reacted, whether he tried to deny everything or crack under pressure. I kept my tone calm, but every word was calculated. When I finally confronted Ryan face to face, he squirmed. "Look, I don't know what you think you have on me," he said, voice shaky. "Oh, I've got plenty," I said, voice low. "You're playing with fire, Ryan. Just keep in mind I've got all the receipts and I'm not afraid to use them." I let that sink in. You might want to think about what's more important, your reputation or your little secret with my wife. That day, I watched her try to pack her things, her face pale and eyes red. She kept calling me, begging me to listen, to stop this. But I had no mercy left. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be exposed and powerless. Finally, I handed her the keys and told her to leave for good. I knew she was going to try to run again, but I had already laid the groundwork. I'd made sure everyone she knew would hear the truth. I wanted her to see that cheating and lying weren't just stains. They were the end of her old life. As she drove away, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I'd done what I had to. I'd made her face her lies, and I'd made sure she understood that no one could cheat the truth forever. I finally felt like I was in control again. Walking back into my house, I knew this wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity, about not letting her get away with destroying what we had. And honestly, I'm glad I did it. I'd proved to myself that I wasn't some fool. No, I was somebody who could stand tall even after being betrayed so badly. Now, I just need to figure out what's next. Moving on isn't easy, but at least I know I took back what was mine. And that's the kind of closure I can live with. The aftermath felt surreal, like waking up from a nightmare I couldn't quite remember. All those nights I'd spent obsessing over her lies, planning my revenge, and now it was done. I'd handed her the keys, watched her drive away, and the silence in my house was deafening. But beneath that silence, there was a strange sense of clarity. I'd finally taken control, at least. That's what I told myself. For the next few days, I kept a low profile, watching her social media, hoping she'd try to contact me or maybe slip up again. But she didn't. Instead, she vanished completely. No messages, no calls, no sign she was even trying to reach out. I guess the truth of her actions finally caught up with her, or maybe she was just trying to escape the fallout. Either way, I didn't mind. What bothered me more was the silence from Ryan. I'd kept my end of the bargain, letting him know I was watching, and I saw him trying to cover his tracks. His social media went dark, his phone was disconnected, and I even heard rumors he'd left his job. Good. That's what I wanted. I wanted her to see that her lies had cost her everything she'd built. But the most unexpected part was how I felt. There was a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I'd been so consumed with revenge, with making her pay, that I hadn't thought about what came afterward. Now that it was over, I wondered if I'd just lost the only person I ever trusted. One night I sat on the porch, the cool air brushing against my skin, and I thought about everything. About the woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, and now the woman who betrayed me. I wondered if I was better off alone or if I'd ever trust again. The truth was I still felt that sting deep down, like a raw wound that refused to heal. Still, I had to move forward. I couldn't just dwell on the past. I had to rebuild, find strength in myself. Maybe I'd start dating again, maybe I wouldn't. For now, I was just trying to breathe. I looked up at the sky, the stars bright and indifferent, and I promised myself I wouldn't let her or Ryan define me. I was stronger than their lies. But deep inside, I knew this wasn't just about revenge. It was about learning how to trust again, how to heal after being shattered. I'd shown her I could fight back, but I also knew I needed to forgive myself for trusting her in the first place. That was the real lesson. No matter how much you want to believe in someone, sometimes you need to see the signs before they destroy everything. In the end, I realized I wasn't just a victim of her lies. I was survivor. And I'd come out of this better. Not because I played her game, but because I refused to let her win. I owed her nothing anymore. What I owed myself was a shot at peace, at moving on, and maybe someday at trusting again. For now, I'd keep myself busy and focus on healing. But I'll never forget the betrayal was painful, yes. But it also made me realize I was capable of more than I thought. And that in itself was worth everything. The house finally felt quiet, almost too quiet. I'd expected it to be a relief, but instead it just hung there like a ghost of what was. The betrayal had torn through me, leaving scars I knew would take years to heal. Still, I had no regrets. I'd done what I had to do to get her out of my life, and honestly, I felt lighter. Like I'd shed a heavy coat I'd been carrying around for too long. One afternoon, I went to the bank, gathered the last of her belongings that she'd left behind, and handed over the keys. I watched her name come off the lease, saw her account closed, and felt a strange sense of finality. I didn't beat her, hell, I never wanted to, but I made sure she understood I wasn't going to be that easy to betray again. As I walked out of the bank, I realized I was finally free from her lies, her secrets, her betrayal. I didn't feel victorious in the way movies portray revenge. Instead, I felt exhausted, drained, but strangely relieved. I'd reclaimed my own dignity. I'd taken control, and that was enough. That night, I sat on my porch and stared at the dark sky. The stars flickered quiet and distant, indifferent to my pain or my triumph. I took a deep breath and let the cool air fill my lungs. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again, like I could finally start healing. I thought about her, about Ryan, about all the lies they spun. I realized how blind I'd been, how I'd ignored the little red flags that kept showing up. A missed call here, a late night there, the way she'd suddenly become so secretive. But I also understood that I couldn't blame myself. Love sometimes blinds us, and that's what made her betrayal so devastating. Now, I had to focus on rebuilding myself. I didn't want to be bitter or consumed by anger. I wanted to be stronger. I wanted to trust again someday, but not blindly. I'd learn from this. I'd be more careful, more aware. I'd rebuild my life piece by piece, and I'd do it without her. Because at the end of the day, the worst part about her lies was knowing I allowed myself to believe in something that was never real. But that's what makes us human: believing, trusting, loving. And sometimes those feelings get shattered. The key is what you do afterward. So today, I'm starting over. No more secrets, no more lies. Just me standing tall, knowing I survived. That's the real victory. And I'll carry that with me for a long time. Because no matter how deep the betrayal, I learned that resilience isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming your strength and moving forward, even when everything tells you to stay broken. And I promise this: next time I open my heart, it'll be for someone who deserves it, not for someone who'll take it and leave me with nothing.